we're gonna do it today, you guys. We are going to do it. This is so long in the making. Oh my gosh. Today, we are going to finally fill up my $10,000 emergency fund. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to such an exciting video. We are going to be talking about money. We are going to be accomplishing a major goal of mine today. And my hope is that this video will inspire you guys to stay strong along your journey towards your financial goals, maybe give you guys some motivation, and I also have some tips for you at the end. This video is going to be just kind of Sunday chat style, talking about money. I really hope you're going to enjoy it, and I think it's going to be our last Sunday chat before the new year. So I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas if you celebrate, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year, you guys. I feel like I've been filming and talking a lot about money lately, and it's really because as the year winds down, as we prepare to start 2024, I have money on my mind. I've got my goals on my mind from last year, my goals on my mind for next year. There's just kind of a lot to think about and a lot to celebrate, and it's just really the type of year where I love to think and talk about money in a very, very positive way. So hope you guys are enjoying it. If this is the first video of mine that you are seeing, my name is Zoe, I'm 27 and I live in Montreal. I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. I post a lot of money videos as well as vlogs talking about lifestyle and work and mental health and all of that. Whether or not you're new, if you are enjoying this video so far, I would love for you to give it a thumbs up. Please like the video because it really supports my channel. So my emergency fund, this is like 4 years in the making. We are finally going to fill it up today, and it's so funny because I'm wearing the same sweater that I wore when we finished paying off my debt together, and this was not intentional. I guess this is just gonna have to be my accomplishing my money goals sweater. So that is so cool. I'm so glad you guys are here with me to do this. And it's so funny as well, just like with my debt, I feel like I've kind of been putting this one off because this goal is one that I've been working towards for so freaking long that I'm kind of like, well, once I hit $10,000, it's like, well, what's next? You know, like, what am I gonna focus on next? What am I gonna put my energy towards? And so I've kind of been avoiding it. I've had the money in my account for a few days now, and finally today I was like, Zoe, you're gonna do it. Like, today's the day. Let's fill up this emergency fund. I don't wanna get too much into my story, but let me just try and run through it really quick. I feel like when you first start your financial journey, an emergency fund just comes and smacks you in the face because it's kind of where a lot of advice recommends that you start, right? I think it's the Dave Ramsey method, and that's kind of where I first came across personal finance, was like Dave Ramsey and then Graham Stephan and the financial diet. And the sort of formula or recipe that we see everywhere online is pay off your debts and build a $10,000 emergency fund. Or sometimes the advice is build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. So I was like, all right, let's go. As I was starting my financial journey, I already knew that, of course, I wanted to pay off my debt. I had about $40,000 of student loan debt, and I had like no money in savings. So I was like, emergency fund sounds good. I definitely focused most of my efforts in the beginning on my debt. I also, in the beginning of my journey, had no control over my spending. I would buy whatever I wanted. I Uber Eats all the time. I always went out for coffee. I would spend so much money with my friends. I just had no control. So although I was aware that I had certain personal finance goals, and although I was aware of these kind of end destinations where I wanted to be, every day I wasn't living like I had these goals. I was doing whatever I wanted. Then I would be upset at the end of the month when I saw how much I spent and how little I was progressing towards my goals. Slowly but surely, I was able to fill up my emergency fund, but I kind of filled it up knowing I was gonna buy a car, which is not really an emergency. I was just like, yeah, I'm filling up my emergency fund. But then when the opportunity presented itself, when I found the right used car for myself, I took the money out of the emergency fund to put as kind of like a down payment on the car. I believe I put like $5,000 to $7,000 down on my car. And then I had some debt as well in the form of a car loan. So basically drained my emergency fund. I might have left a little bit of money in there so that I wasn't completely at zero, but yeah, so I never counted that as being filled because I always knew I was going to take the money out for a car. Shortly after buying the car, when it's time to like, okay, let's start refilling this emergency fund, getting it towards $10,000, I was laid off from my consulting job where I was making about $65,000 a year. And after getting laid off, I decided that I wanted to take a chance on myself and try out being a freelancer. While as a job and as a style of work that suited me a lot better, I was making quite a bit less money than in my consulting days. And many months would go by where I didn't have enough money to pay my rent and meet all of my expenses for this lifestyle that I had developed while working as a consultant. So I was making a certain salary, I developed this certain lifestyle, keeping in mind at this point, I still don't really follow a budget. I'm very aware of my finances, but I'm not following a budget. And I'm making less money. So I was kind of in a not so great situation, which meant that I was actually taking money most months from my emergency fund. And obviously that hurt, but I was very glad that the money was there. And it's so funny because at the time, I remember getting quite a bit of shit handed to me on the internet because I was filming monthly money videos and stuff at the time, and people would be like, you shouldn't take it from your emergency fund. That's not a real emergency. I remember one month going to the vet and paying for my dog's shots and like some stuff with that. And people were like, you should have seen that coming. That's not a real emergency. And I felt so ashamed of myself having to take from my emergency fund to cover my dog's expenses. But looking back now, I'm like, if you need money, and you have money in your savings, it's your money and it's not for anyone to shame you of the reason why you're taking it out. I mean, unless maybe you're taking it out to go gamble at Caesar's Palace, then yeah, maybe you need to think about what you're doing. But for the most part, we get to decide what is an emergency and when we want to take out from our savings. So that was like about a year where I was like, oof, okay, having to take, maybe a little bit less than a year. And finally, my turning point was two things. One, the cash envelopes. I finally started doing cash envelopes. First time in my life that I've got a budget that I can stick to, that I'm controlling my spending, that I know where my money's going, and that gave me so much confidence. I stopped with the Uber Eats. I stopped with spending so much money with my friends. I stopped shopping for things that were just like emotional reactions shopping, like, oh, I'm stressed, I'm gonna buy a new sweater. I stopped doing that. And the second thing was that I increased my rates as a freelancer. I started working more hours as a freelancer because in my first year of being self-employed, I remember there were months where I did like 5 to 10 hours of copywriting, and like that's not gonna pay the bills. So I started doing a lot more copywriting. My YouTube channel grew. I started working with more brands. So I was bringing in what was a very nice salary. It was starting to match back up to the salary that I was making in consulting, and I could have suddenly afford my lifestyle again, plus I was spending less. So that's where I was able to start making more strides towards my emergency fund. And from there, I've only become, I guess, more comfortable with my finances and continued growing my various streams of income. Out of my emergency fund and my debt, I feel like I started to actually put them on the same wavelength. And I did something in the spring of 2023 that was a total game changer, which was I looked at both of my amounts. So I said, I have a $10,000 goal, and I don't remember how much debt I had left, but whatever it was, I looked at that. I said, when do I want to achieve this goal by? End of 2023, like January 1st, 2024, I want my debt to be paid off and I want $10,000 in my emergency fund. So I calculated backwards. I think we were in May at this point. So how many months do we have left in the year? June, July, August, September, October, November, December. We have 7 months. Divide what's left. So how much more do I need to get to 10,000? How much more do I need to become debt-free? Divide that by 7. That is my monthly payment. This is the number I have to commit to achieve my goal by the date that I want to achieve it. This was the ultimate game changer because I knew what I had to do every single month. I knew, okay, I got, a nice paycheck from a brand this month, but I've got to meet my monthly payments towards my goals. So I'm not going to take it and go shopping as old me would have done. It gave me an anchor and it gave me a monthly goal, and suddenly my two very big goals were actually achievable. For my emergency fund, that number was $470. So every month I had to hit 470, 470, 470 to be on track to paying off my emergency fund. My car loan number was, I think, like $210 a month. So it was like, those are my numbers, stick to them, we're good. I was able to accelerate my car payment, and that is why in October, you guys saw that video, I was able to completely pay it off and become debt-free, which was the best feeling. So I'm really hoping that filling this emergency fund is going to be a similar feeling, but that basically brings us to right now where I have $500 left to fill up this emergency fund. The account is literally at $9,500. And yeah, that's kind of my story. It took me almost 4 years to fill up this $10,000 emergency fund. And I just wanted to share that story with you guys because I feel like sometimes on the internet, it looks like people achieving their goals is so easy, it's so seamless, it's so natural. And we can think like, why does it happen so easily for them? Why not for me? And for me personally, it wasn't easy. It wasn't until I really truly made it a priority and made a plan, right? It's all nice to think like, yeah, I want a $10,000 emergency fund. But if you don't have a plan, $10,000 is a lot of money. And unfortunately, you're probably not going to wake up with like $10,000 under your pillow one day. So that is like the takeaway. You can do it. It's not necessarily easy, but you can do it. And it doesn't actually matter how long it takes you to achieve your goals. As long as you stay perseverant, as long as you stay working towards them, there's gonna be setbacks in life. There might be months where you have to take from your emergency fund, and that's okay, but just kind of keep your eye on the prize and you will end up at your goal. That's the funny thing too, is like once I fill up this emergency fund today, I feel like I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna have to touch it. But I might, right? I might have to take from it. Something could happen. We never know. And then it will be a plan of having to refill it once again. All of that to say, should we finally fill up this emergency fund, you guys? Should we make the transfer? Yes, we should. Okay, I'm gonna make the transfer and then we will talk about where I'm keeping my emergency fund and why. $500, submit. It's done. It's done. Okay, well, I actually have to take it from my bank, but it's almost done. Let's see if it came through. Not yet. It usually takes a minute, but I keep my emergency fund with Wealthsimple. So the reason I keep it with Wealthsimple is because in Canada, this is one of the banks that will give you a higher interest rate for your money. I keep the emergency fund in a Wealthsimple cash account, which earns 4% interest. The balance is protected, so if anything happens, I know that I'm covered. Up until a few months ago, I had it in a Wealthsimple Save account, which was earning like 1.5% interest, but then they moved the cash account up to 4%, so I transferred it. So the $10,000 will sit there. Hopefully for many, many months, I won't have to touch it. Plus it will incur 4% interest, which is pretty good. The reason I do not invest my emergency fund is because from what I've read and from what I understand, you want easy access to this money. If you break your leg and you have to pay some guy on the side of the road $500 to fix it for you, I don't know. I don't know why I went with that example because anyway, if you need $500 and you need it right away. So you don't want to have it invested and then you have to wait and you have to take it out. Also, investments fluctuate and are meant to be in there for a long term. This is something you want instant access to. You do not want it to fluctuate too much. So that's why I just chose a nice steady 4%, which is really good with Wealthsimple. Depending on what country you live in, of course, your bank options are going to be different, but I recommend looking for an account that is safe, that you have easy access to, and if you can, will earn you a little bit of interest. I also like to keep it, of course, separate from my checking account and just separate from my general bank, because I don't want to see my emergency fund. I don't want to see that I have $10,000 in an account because I don't want to be tempted to touch it. I don't want to be tempted like, oh, I really want a new winter jacket. Like, let me just dip into this money and I'll pay it back next month. I don't, kind of out of sight, out of mind. I just want to know in the back of my head that it's there, it's safe, I'm protected, I've covered myself, and I'm not gonna spend it. So that's my advice for where to keep your emergency fund. If you're in Canada, you can check out Wealthsimple. I know there are some other banks as well that are doing a 4% account. So just do your own research, choose an institution that you feel safe and comfortable with. I personally love Wealthsimple. I do everything from the app. It's super, super easy. It's very like millennial Gen Z. So it's like, you know, it's just easy to navigate and I love it. Let's also talk quickly about the $10,000 number. So like I said, I'm pretty sure I got that from Dave Ramsey. I know like everyone hates Dave Ramsey, but whatever, $10,000, I was like, that sounds good. That sounds comfortable. That's a number that I feel safe with. Something that would drive me insane along my journey of filling up this emergency fund is when people would be like, oh, $10,000 great, but it should really be 15, or it should really be 6 months expenses. And I'd be like, oh, can you just let me get to the 10 and then I'll worry about making it bigger if I have to? That always just drove me insane. It's like, if someone says they want to save up, you know, $50,000, don't tell them, well, they actually need 100. It's like, let them get to 50 and then you can tell them they need 100. Anyways, I'm happy with $10,000. For me, $10,000 is a couple of months of just like emergency. I'm totally covered and that makes me feel good. I would rather focus my efforts now somewhere else. I want to start, you know, building my investments, building my retirement, saving to have a home one day. That's just where I want to start putting my money and not anymore into the emergency fund. That being said, I do want to build little branches of my emergency fund, like having a Maggie fund of about $500 to $1,000. I also want to build a vacation fund. My goal is to have different sort of spending pockets of money that are at the ready, but I don't feel like I need to make my emergency fund any bigger right now. I definitely think if my expenses were higher, if I had a home, if I had children to worry about, these are things you want to consider in your total emergency fund amount. If you have 5 children and that, you know, adds to your expenses, then yeah, you may want to increase that amount. At the beginning of this video, I talked about, you know, once you accomplish one goal, what's next? Well, for me, I know that in general, what's next is I really want to focus on making the most of my RRSP because there are some amazing tax break benefits when you invest in your RSP or your RRSP in Canada. So I think that's where I want to focus the majority of my efforts. I'm thinking my goal will be to contribute about $1,000 a month. I'm like, that would be amazing because right now I've been trying to contribute about 500. Plus I was putting $470 towards my emergency fund. So if we put those together, we can get a nice $1,000 monthly contribution to my retirement. I think that would be great. That being said, I also am starting to think about things like buying a home, which is crazy. I even, you know, I'm like jumping 5 steps ahead and I'm like, should I start saving for a wedding one day? Do I need to start saving for like my kids one day? Like I'm kind of in this like existential mode. And I think it's because for so long, my goals were to become debt-free and to fill this emergency fund that now I'm like, the world is my oyster. Like, what shall I save for? Which is super exciting. I don't know, besides the $1,000, I don't have like a concrete plan. I think I just kind of want to sit with this success right now. And then for New Year's, I'm going to lay out all of my New Year's goals and like the exact amounts and everything. That being said, like I mentioned in my story time, the best thing for me is to have concrete numbers every month. So not to say like, oh yeah, I'd like to contribute to my RRSP and oh yeah, I should, you know, contribute to my vacation fund. Having a concrete number, having this checklist of every month you're aiming for $1,000, $500, $200, whatever it is to whatever account. For me, that is my best tip towards accomplishing your financial goals. $10,000 in a year, let's say, it sounds doable. Let's say you're like, I want to fill my emergency fund in 1 year. Well, it definitely sounds doable and it is doable. But I think sometimes we can be like, oh, it's doable. Like I'll worry about it next month. But if we calculate $10,000 divided by 12 months in a year, that's $833. That is not nothing. To put $833 towards your savings every single month it's not nothing. You have to consciously, do this and have the money put aside. So sometimes these things can feel easy. And when we break it down on a month by month, we realize like, oh, that's a lot. I could say, oh, I want to save $25,000 in a year because maybe that sounds reasonable. 25,000 divided by 12 is $2,000 a month. Like, I don't have that kind of money right now to put aside every single month. So really recommend doing this exercise. I know it sounds so easy, but it's something that I never thought about. It's really going to put your goals into perspective, and finding these numbers that are reasonable and attainable, it's going to help you achieve your goals so much faster. So that's a wrap on finally filling up this $10,000 emergency fund, you guys. It feels so good. I want to thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I hope you enjoyed this kind of short little video. I hope it inspires you. And I just want to say, stay strong on your financial goals. And if you want to let me know in the comments what you're currently working on and how it's going, that makes me so happy, because my goal with my channel is that we, are on our journeys to living our healthy and wealthy best lives. And I really want your financial success. I want you to feel good. I want you to achieve your goals. And I just love hearing about it. It makes me so happy. So with that being said, I will stop talking now. I will see you guys in my next video. It shouldn't be too far away from right now. So I will see you so soon. I love you. Bye.